I just want to let you guys know. When I was growing up, my mom supported me and my sister. She worked 2 jobs to support us and make sure we had food on the table.
I think I've heard this before, but keep going.
Yeah, well, it's true. And she loved America, and so does me and my sister. So I'm here to try my best to be the first woman president of the United States. And yeah, that I love America that much. I do.
Well,
yeah, Donald is a fascist, and I am not a fascist.
What is a fascist? But like, what does that mean? Like, I really would love people.
No, let's not back the vice president into a corner. Let's be fair. Fascism is the merging of the corporate state with government, and it does seem, I could be wrong here, but former vice president and should be in The Hague, Cheney was the CEO of Halliburton, and he was ensuring Halliburton got major contracts during the war in Iraq. Now, I don't know about you, but isn't that kind of fascism? Wouldn't you say that the former vice president is kind of a fascist himself? Just asking.
I don't think so. Fascism to me is very, very right-wing policies and someone who's a dictator. And that's Donald Trump. He is a dictator. Not me, not Kamala Harris. No. Nobody on the Democratic side is that. No George Soros, nobody. It's Donald Trump.
Just, yeah.
So is it fair to say that as soon as you declare that you're a Democrat, that automatically makes you not a fascist? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, I'm not a fascist. I can't really speak about the other Democrats because I am a different person. I'm Kamala Harris, and I'm VP of the United States. And yeah, I am. And I'm looking forward to winning this election. And I hope you guys do vote for me.
Well, you're going to have to hope a little harder. But we'll finish this out and see what else you have to say.
Over 400 previous members of the administration, from Ronald Reagan to both Presidents Bush to Donald Trump even, have endorsed my candidacy. And the reason why among them is a legitimate fear based on Donald Trump's words and actions that he will not obey an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. He himself has said he would terminate the Constitution of the United States and wants to earn your vote to stand again behind the seal of the President of the United States? No one standing behind the seal of the President of the United States of America should be in that position saying they want to terminate the Constitution of the United States.
Madam Vice President, Donald Trump is a lot of things, but I have never once heard him say, we totally have to eradicate the Constitution. So could you kind of be a little bit more definitive about why you would say that he said such a thing when I don't see it on record? Jen, have you seen that on record?
No, I have not.
Well, we are not Trump supporters, mind you. So
I'm also curious how he would do it. You know, I'm very curious how he would do that.
He wants to take away a woman's right to choose. And that is huge. A woman has her right to choose what she does with her body. Okay. Not a state, not the government. Just each woman has her own right. She shouldn't have to listen to somebody. If she wants an abortion, she shouldn't have to go to another state just to get an abortion. She should be able to have one in her doctor's office. And that's the thing we're trying to protect here. Women's rights, rights to choose, transgender rights, to change their bodies if they don't like what they were born with. They want to add a penis on themselves, they can, or take away a penis. I don't know. I just think whatever they want, they should be able to have it. That's my opinion.
We started off so promisingly, but hey, just fight your way through it, I guess. We do want to know, though, which I think is important here, and considering that early voting has already begun, not mail-in voting, but actually going to the polls and casting your vote. And yet, for many swing state voters, they still say the biggest issue with you is they do not know what you stand for. They do not know how you are different from the current sitting president. So this is what you had to say last night regarding this particular question.
You've been in the position of vice president for the past 4 years under the Biden administration. How can we expect you to deviate from the direction of that administration compared to your own? How can we differentiate your policy and your beliefs from that of Biden's?
That's a great question, and thank you. Well, first of all, my administration will not be a continuation of the Biden administration. I bring to this role my own ideas and my own experience. I represent a new generation of leadership on a number of issues and believe that we have to actually take new approaches. For example, what we talked about in terms of housing. My experience that leads to that priority includes what I did to take on the big banks around the foreclosure crisis when I brought billions of dollars to homeowners that were the subject of predatory lending. I know what homeownership means to the.
I'm going to have to do a little bit of a gotcha, Madam Vice President. It's necessary. This is an important question because you want the American people to know exactly where you stand. Well, as you know, you were the Attorney General in California for a number of years, especially during a very difficult time for most Californians during the Great Recession. Many, many people lost their homes. And I do think that the actions of, I believe it was one national bank, I don't want to butcher the name of Steve Mnuchin's bank too badly, but it does seem that there was overwhelming evidence that he was kicking people out of their homes. And your office highly encouraged you to prosecute Mr. Mnuchin for financial crimes related to the housing crisis. And yet, you didn't prosecute him, and then he gives you a substantial contribution to your U.S. Senate campaign in 2016. That does seem like a conflict of interest as it relates to what you just said last night. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Well, this is the thing. Okay. Like I said, I've lived in California a long time. Okay. And, you know, first of all, I'm going to go say that I used to go to church with my mom and my sister, and we prayed every day, sometimes twice a day. And I love going to church. Yeah, that's important for me. As an American, I think it's important that you have a faith that we need this in our lives. And I do believe that faith should be intertwined with our government in a certain way. And I mean, don't you agree?
No, actually, we actually do support One West Bank. Thank you, Chino Latino, Chino, California. So there you go, a fellow Californian attesting to the name of the bank that Mr. Mnuchin, as I was emphasizing, was taking people out of their homes. Now, I have no problem, as Jen, I think you would agree, if people choose to pray. We know people that pray 5 times a day. What I have a problem with are those that say that they do not believe in the separation of church and state. And that does sound like what you're saying. And since you think that the former president is going to eradicate the Constitution, I would think eradicating the First Amendment is the equivalent of eradicating the Constitution. And that's my opinion. So correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong here in interpreting what you're saying. A lot of people tend to have a problem with being able to interpret what you're saying. So here's an opportunity to self-correct if necessary.
Well, first of all, the First Amendment cannot be eradicated. And the fascist Trump is trying to change that, in my opinion. So I would not change that. That I would not change. It's a freedom of speech. And that's what everybody deserves, is a freedom. You know, that is just the way it's been in the United States for decades. And that's how I feel as VP. And when I become president, there's going to be differences between me and Biden. And those are currently in writing. Those are things that are going to happen. Like,
I'm
Yes,
going to
sir.
spare our audience from having to. I kind of understand what you're trying to say, but I'm not even sure you understand what you're saying. So let's listen to more of what you had to say last night, and that way you can respond.
The American people, not to mention what it meant to my mother, who worked very hard and saved up so that by the time I was a teenager, she was able to buy our first home. I bring to it my experience actually taking care of my mother when she was sick, and it was, as it turned out, dying from cancer. And so I know what it means and have the experience of taking.
I just have to say, I know you tried really hard to shed a tear there, and I know it didn't happen. But listen, A for effort. You know, it doesn't work for everybody. Some can cry on cue, some can't. It is what it is.
Care of an elderly relative, and I have raised children. And so I bring to my priorities and will, as president, a new approach and a new idea, frankly, about what we need to do to deal with the sandwich generation, which is what we call those folks who are literally in the middle, who are raising their young children and taking care of their parents, which is why my plan and approach says, hey, you shouldn't have to wipe out all your savings to qualify for Medicaid to be able to get support to hire somebody to help you cook for your parent or help them put on a sweater. I've done that. I know what that requires.
Okay, so you said like 5 or 6 different things there, but I'm going to pick one of them out for you to explain, because I don't think, Jen, even you would understand what the sandwich generation is. That's a new one. So if you can help us better understand what that means, because I've never heard that before.
I'm in the sandwich generation, Peter. People with children and parents. That's exactly what she's talking about.
That is true. That is very true. It's a sandwich generation. And I've raised children. Even though I didn't give birth, I did raise children. I did. And I miss my mother very much. I do. I didn't shed a tear, but I miss her.